Welcome to Leaving Nothing to Chance, your go-to podcast where we bring you insights from some of the most influential voices in small business and personal development. Each week, we dive deep into conversations with top thought leaders, authors, and business moguls from around the world, sharing their secrets to success and strategies for growth. Tune in for exclusive content that will inspire, motivate, and equip you to take your journey to the next level. This is Leaving Nothing to Chance.
Dan McCormick, Awakening Who I Am. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about Chapter 2.
Yes.
So, Mr. McCormick, how are you, sir?
Good to be with you always. Yeah, great stuff. Can't wait for the questions and to see what kind of energy and clarity we can provide, principally speaking, for people on the journey.
So, Dan, let me quote something to you here. You ask a great question here. Will it edify others? What is my primary motive? Am I seeking first to bless, not impress? Love that language, by the way. Bless, not impress. Seeking first the health and welfare of my audience and not my wealth. What does that mean?
It's actually a very cool principle when you think about the word character. I mean, that really is your character, right? If you can look to serve others, and by the fact that you're serving others, you are blessing others. And by doing that, you create every bit of, call it karma, call it frequency, call it vibration, call it energy, whatever you want to refer to it as. Look at the three letters in the middle of the word character. It's ACT. What did 𝐷𝐿 say in scroll number 9? I will act now. So you're acting inside of your character, and you're looking to bless other people's lives. It's a great principle. And I think the height of the spiritual depth of the principle might be that you serving another person at a time when maybe you're dealing with your own crisis, your own challenge, your own difficulty, your own setback, and you still make time for another. You still pray for another. You still look to lift another. And so bless, not to impress. And then the great adage is help enough people get what they want, and you're going to get what you want.
Yep. Mr. Ziegler. Robert Louis Stevenson, the author, said, I always kept 2 books in my pocket, one to read and one to write in. Thus, the idea, how the power of words. Winston Churchill, not quoted here, but Winston Churchill said, I will take the English language and I will send it into battle. Others said similar things. C.S. Lewis said, we read to know we're not alone.
Wow.
I think we also write to know we're not alone.
Well, I was going to answer your question by saying that that's the principle that is so special to me, because how many of us have gone to bed at night and you have an idea of something you need to do, and you don't get up and write it down? And the next morning you hear, what was it that I thought about last night? What was the idea, the word, the book, the phrase, the chore, the friend, the call, all of those things? And that's why the pen or pencil never forgets. The brain will. So we always have 2 books with us, one to read and one to write in, so that we can be working through those things. And that really is, I think we may have touched on this last week, that is one of the genesis ideas of flow before phone. You know, always keep the pen moving to ignite transformation in your life, even if it doesn't feel like it's something that's of wow factor for your life right now, because you're in that mode, you're in that habit, you're in that, you know, I like to say that wisdom is reserved for those who search. Well, there's a great author that penned many of world classics back in the day. And he made this famous comment: writing a book, it's nothing. You sit at the typewriter and bleed.
I can relate.
It's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy.
That's right. That's right. So why be an author, Dan? You guys ask a great question here. Why be an author? And I'll quote from the book again, and love your thoughts on this. Being an author builds your authenticity, authority, and your legacy. Your friend Stephen Covey, who I think was one of your wife's professors, if I'm not mistaken,
True. Yeah.
one time, Stephen Covey suggested the learner first capture the essence of the content, teach it to others, and then creatively expand on it. And that's partially what you're inviting people to do, to really study their lives and document their lives. And to your point, write it down, because you're not going to probably remember it in the morning or next Tuesday afternoon when you go, I had this idea, but I don't remember what it was, especially as we
Which
get
is
older.
another great principle by Covey when he talked about, he always had this idea that when you learn a principle, and what's so valuable nowadays, he didn't have these things back in his day, but to do a podcast, right? If you learn something and then you teach it to somebody else in the next 48 hours, you're going to have a greater capacity for the depth if you're going to learn it. If you're just going to listen to a show, an interview like this podcast, and you're not going to be all in on the workbook, on the journal notes, on the prompts, etc., you might learn something. You might get a great takeaway, but it's going to be much deeper if you listen to this podcast today and you have to teach this in the next 48 hours. You will listen differently, learn differently. That's why I was so bad in school, because I never had an accountability factor. I never had a why. I never had an interest in the classes. And I heard a great quote the other day from one of my frequency doctors, and that is that the teacher should always be teaching the curriculum that the student wants to learn.
Yep.
Because they're going to be it's like two of my grandkids, they went for an entire year, they did an outdoor school. Like every day of the year in Utah, they were outdoors, regardless of the temperature.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well,
so if somebody has an I am affirmation, why? If somebody has a desire to get off the plateau, if somebody wants to jump and really go and ignite, as the subtitle says, those two words that transform lives, you really dig in and not only say it, but you feel it and you write it. And then we go to the 7 levels of affirmations at the end of the book to cement it.
You know, this next topic we could probably talk about for hours, maybe days. And that is, why be a finisher?
It is the coolest principle I've learned from the death of my friend Nathan Ricks. I remembered this message that he gave years ago. I didn't make it a mantra in my life until the day he died in his plane wreck, January 2nd, 2022-3. And I never forget a phone call that I got that day saying, I'll never forget Nathan giving me that idea that always search to be a finisher. And how do you be a better finisher? You start fewer things. I think that every CEO in the world should read that section of the book, just so they can have a higher level of understanding of everything that a CEO does, that a mission-driven entrepreneur does. It's always easy to start something new. It's easy to share a new program. It's easy to come out with a new brochure, a new comp plan, a new everything. Why not finish and execute on everything you've already promised the world you're going to do? That, to me, is always saying, I am a finisher. My workout, okay, wash the car, cut the grass, clean the closet, start a new project, create a new book, write a new blog, do a podcast. I am a finisher. It will change the way you feel about every task that you start in life. It's a beautiful topic.
You know, I'm going to tell you how that hit me, Dan, if you don't mind, if our listeners don't mind. Let me just share this, because I'm about to turn a new number this year. Like most of you hopefully will, right? We're all going to make our next birthdays. And mine's a big number. Mine's 64.
Gotcha.
And I said to somebody the other day, a lot of my high school and college friends, I see on Facebook, they're retiring. Guy I wrestled with in high school, I noticed he retired last week, and wished him well. And I'm thinking, I don't know about you, Dan, but I don't even think about retiring. Okay.
Never.
and it's not for financial reasons. I can retire financially right this second, never work again, and be fine. But I feel like I have so much more to give than what I've already received. And I have so many new projects, some of which you know about, that
Yeah.
I've started in the last little while, including really building this media podcast network that we're building.
And you're doing an incredible
insight.
job. You're a finisher on this topic.
Yeah.
Like you could have given this up a long time ago when it didn't seem to have the meat or the teeth or the, do I really want to do this again? Maybe the numbers weren't in the millions, right? But you've continued on, and what is it made of?
Yeah. Oh, it's growing now like crazy, which is great.
Yeah.
But more important than that is the messages getting out there on this stuff. But I go back to something you guys did in the book when you're talking about the Apostle Paul saying, lay aside every weight and sin and run with endurance the race set before us. To your point, whether it's a CEO, whether it's a coach that says, let's not run this play. This play worked the last 4 times we scored a touchdown, so let's run it another way. Run it again. If they stop you, figure out what to do, right? But we've seen that. We've seen that
Yeah.
at all levels in athletics. We see that in business all the time. Point being, in Paul's words, what he says is finish the race that you began.
Yeah.
And he's quoting directly from Jesus, by the way.
Yeah.
Finish the race, which is great.
And again, we can look at that. And I like to take every doctrinal principle and ask, how does that fit in my life? What do I learn from the paradigm of Paul? I have a different life than Paul had, right? I'm still here to serve other people, love other people, be a good husband, spouse, neighbor, friend, etc. But the world is different than Paul's world. But the principle for me is to finish the race. I mean, I took classes last summer. I got coaches galore, and I was in those classes because I wanted to finish this book, but it wasn't done. What I had to learn wasn't complete. All of the words that needed to be said hadn't been written. And so I had to give it time, let it marinate, be patient, keep working through it, keep refining it. I had 2 different editors go through the book, right? I had all kinds of input from people that saw the draft copies, giving me insights, etc. So needless to say, run the race, finish the race. And, I kind of have this feeling like you do that I'm never going to retire, but I will regularly refire. When there's a new project that excites me. And I have a lot of projects in my life right now. I now have the first draft of my next book. I'm starting a newsletter in a couple of months. I have all kinds of things that I'm really excited about to make a difference in my life that I think will make a quantifiable, qualitative, and quantitative impact on other people's lives. So being a finisher is a big topic. I'm glad you brought that verse up.
Well, like I said, it hit me because it's like, I got a lot of loose ends. I'm not going to tell you I got all this stuff finished, but I'll tell you I got a lot of it began. But there is finish lines to certain things that will happen. But let's stay on the topic. So the 2 most important words in the English language are
I am.
And why?
Because I means exist, am means with God. So what follows I am follows you. And that is the entire point of the book. Is it wasn't a new idea to have a book about affirmations. We've seen books about affirmations. It was a new idea to go deeper on the affirmations, to make it more personal, to feel, to be able to let it become your identity, if you will, that you're going to every single day filter for higher quality words. And the reason you want to do that is because you know that energy, vibration, and frequency all come from the words that we use. I mean, in the beginning was the word, right? So we know that words are important. I am a creator all the way through. I am a finisher every day.
And if you go back to Revelation 22:13, Jesus said, I am Alpha and Omega.
Yes.
The first and the last letters of the Greek alphabet, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Indeed, it was in the beginning, and he will be there in the end. What he starts, he finishes, ensuring that all creation serves and fulfills its intended purposes. The Gospel of John alone, Christ said, makes 7 I am statements.
That's
I am
right.
the bread of life. I am the light of the world. I am the door. I am the good shepherd. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the true vine. Now, whether you're a believer in Jesus Christ, as Dan and I both obviously are, or not, okay, if you just look at Jesus like some folks do, even as a historical person, or some of my friends in the Jewish faith, they see him as a mentor, not necessarily the savior, okay? But no matter how you see him, if it was good enough for him, because
That's
his
right.
philosophy has lasted at least 2,000 years, and we kid in network marketing, right? He started an organization, 12 guys, one flaked out, but the other 11 carried on, and here we are, millions of people later. But to that point, and a serious point, if it was good enough for him, it should be good enough for us.
Again, it's interesting when you're driving down the road and you've never seen a Prius. You're driving down the road, you've never seen a Cybertruck. You're driving down the road, you've never seen whatever kind of a car, a VW Bug, right? And then you see one, and then you realize they're everywhere. Well, when you realize that I am affirmations are throughout the scriptures. I mean, when God says, I am that I am, and then Joel says, I am strong, and then you got the 7 affirmations there. You got the Revelations one you just mentioned. You've got some really powerful stuff throughout scripture that you can liken to your own life. This is a principle that is for the listener today to enrich their life. Find those I am affirmations that are specific for you, that can lift you, that will become what I call protection scriptures or protection affirmations. So no matter what comes out of left field and hits you, you got to, hey, I am a creator. I am intentional. I am present. I am worthy. I am capable. I am compassionate. And I am a finisher.
And what did he say on the cross, right? It is finished.
It's finished. And your Alpha and Omega scripture was beautiful.
We got to finish. 7 I am affirmations. So Dan, I want to quote from you on this, okay? That you have said, I am nature's greatest miracle. And you've said that to me long before this book. Ever since I know you have always said that and maintained it. I am having the greatest day of my life. I am living and loving with passion. I am attracting abundant blessings. I am receiving inspired ideas and dreams in my heart and mind. Powerful, powerful affirmations. And you're living them, and you're doing them, and you're achieving them.
And the first time I read I am nature's greatest miracle, I didn't look at it as an I am affirmation. I was a 19-year-old kid. I didn't know how to read very good. I didn't know how to kind of like filter for what I was really growing from. And there's Og in scroll number 4, right? He starts off, today I begin a new life as an alcoholic. Then he comes to, I will greet this day with love in my heart. I will persist until I succeed. And then we get to number 4. And right there on the back of my coin, I am a magnet for miracles. Og says, I am nature's greatest miracle. Think about that. Nobody's fingerprints are the same with 8 billion people on the planet. Isn't that amazing? That magnet works for everybody. It's just a matter of when we put it to work. We can look at everything as being a miracle. Every day, every breath, every relationship. I mean, it's like so many positives. Gratitude attracts miracles. So we have to look for the gratitude in all circumstances. And that's what I've learned from my daughter. My daughter's in the book. We talk about her disease called Susac. She was free with no flares for 3 years. And just last month, she had her first flare again. Hospital for a month, hospital for a week. And now she's got a whole new life again to try to battle back and make sure her hearing's fine, eyes are fine, brain's fine, autoimmune's fine, all this stuff that she deals with this Susac. And she is a champion on living the utmost positivity and gratitude.
Isn't it amazing? You watch the stuff people go through, like what your daughter's going through, and they just fight and they got a smile on their face. And then you see somebody, they got it all, and all they do is whine and complain. And you're like, do you get it?
Yeah.
So
let's take it a layer deeper. How would you like to be some massively influential, unbelievably wealthy, incredible amount of friends, and in an instant you don't have any of them? story of Job.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was his attitude?
Yeah.
So I'll get it back. The Lord giveth, the Lord taketh.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Now that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you lose a couple bucks today and you go, ooh, that stung, right? But he lost it all and still had the paradigm of, wow, life's pretty good here.
Yeah. And he would not curse the Lord.
That's right.
I've met people, and you've met people in our network marketing careers, these different speakers that you bring in sometimes, and you know, they have some life story where they overcame such ridiculous odds, or they had a terrible accident or something, and they're super happy people. And you go, you know, what that person goes through in pain in a day.
Oof.
Human beings should have to, and yet they do, and they do it with a smile on their face. You know, we had a lady with no hands who came to our conventions, and she actually was able to write with her foot, believe it or not.
Amazing.
And she became an attorney.
Wow.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, just like you know. Anyway, and there were so many stories like that, and of course, and they're there to inspire us. Those people are there to inspire us.
That's exactly right. And those attitudes are something that we should, again, just so much gratitude that when you're dealt that hand and people can be that positive, like Chad Hymas is in my life, who endorsed my book, you know, quadriplegic, and I'm speaking at his annual event next week. It's an awesome thing to learn from those people, and I can be a lot better in that area for sure.
Yeah, well, we all can, right? Much is given, much is expected, but sometimes we don't realize it, you know.
Yeah.
So Dan, I love the fact, and you and I both believe this so strongly about winning the morning. And let me give you something interesting, because I'm doing so many of these different podcasts with different people. So I had a doctor pop up, Dr. Ravi Iyer, Iyer. He's out of Virginia. I forget how many medical degrees he's got, at least 2, maybe 3. And I interviewed him last week. And he's Indian descent. He lives here in the States, of course, but he's Indian descent. And he talked about the fact that 90 minutes before sunrise is when all of these things start to happen in your body and in your mind and in your soul.
Wow.
Like the 5 a.m. club, right? Like parallel rods. And we talked about that, and I said, that's really interesting. So I said, let's do a deep dive on that. And he explained what's happening in your body. Now, you know, he's a medical man, so he understands, you know, what's happening beyond, you know, what you or I may understand at our level. But I said, is that an Ayurvedic thing that you're talking about? He goes, well, yes and no. He goes, yeah, it's definitely ancient. You know, Ayurvedic medicine's ancient. He said, but it's not really that. He says, it's everybody, every human on the planet. I said, is that why? I said, I've always called that the entrepreneur's brain. Because I always thought it was guys like you and I talked to our friend Larry Thompson about it. He's an early riser. And I talked to the owner of my company. He's an early riser. I just think, well, successful people, we're busy. We got to get up early because we need to seize the day, right? But it's interesting that he was talking about the fact that we have to do that. Now, I know some people try to ignore that, but they're generally not really successful. You know,
I would agree that, I mean, I have friends in network marketing that like to get up the crack of 10, okay? And that's just their life. Some people like to be wired for being up at 1, 2, 3 in the morning. And that's not the way the system is set. If you want to follow the Savior's example in Mark, when he gets up early and he goes out in those, you know, faraway places to ponder, pray, and meditate, what's really happening here, and I'm not sure what your friend, how he talked about it, but there's something called neurogenesis, and I don't recall if we touched on it in the last show.
about it, yeah.
So when all those baby nerve cells are being born, what's the first thing? Like, I think first words, first light, first thoughts on paper, and I just was writing your ideas down for 90 minutes. What's magic about that 90 minutes before sunrise? It's the programming. What do we want to feed the mind? Do we want to go to social media? Do we want to look at TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, etc., and let that be the paradigm? That's not the good way to go. So I love that your friend said that, and I think that that's a universal principle and truth around the world.
Well, he even took it one step further. He was talking about he does his earthing first thing.
Love it.
He gets his feet in the dirt first thing
Yep.
that he can, and on and on. But anyway, but to that point, so let's talk about winning the morning, Dan. Okay, affirmation 1: I am an author and creator.
Yeah.
I am intentional and innovative. Affirmation 2.
Yep.
I'll read these and I'd like you to respond to them. I am present and positive. So, first thing in the morning, if you told yourself those 3 things,
Powerful, because
am-
obviously the mind is going to be responding to what you put out there, what you harmonize with, what you read, what you write, what you hear. And so when you say, I am a creator, now look, I'm not saying you're like the first verse in the Bible. In the beginning, God created. Well, I analogize that again to my life. So in the beginning of my day, I get to create my thoughts. And so that's where I'm going with that notion. And then secondly, I am intentionally doing that. I am going to be intentionally putting creative thoughts in my mind on my paper. And then I'm going to be present and let it soak in, let it marinate. And that's powerful when you don't have to go anywhere. If you take that time, 90 minutes, call it. Some people only have 20. Take 20. Hal says, hey, figure out how you do Miracle Morning in 5 minutes or 50 minutes or several hours, right? But when I know that I'm present, for me, good things usually happen.
Present and positive. Win the day. Character and competence.
Yep.
Affirmation 4, I am worthy and deserving. Affirmation 5, I am qualified and capable. Affirmation 6, I am compassionate and empathetic.
Yeah. So that's a powerful thing when you think about, what Covey talked about with win-win. I'm particularly aware when people live their life through self-deprecating thoughts and words. And I don't think that the Lord would have us use those words. So we go back to Bruce Lee's quote we used last week too, right? What words, you can't trick the body. The body doesn't know the difference. If you say, I'm fat, I'm lazy, I'm tired, I'm sick, etc., you're prescribing who your identity is. If I wake up and say, I am a creator, I'm intentional, I'm present, I am worthy. Look, in the sight of God, right, the worth of souls is great. So you wouldn't want to minimize that by saying silly quips. Look for and filter for a higher way to look at that time in your life. That, somebody gives you a compliment and, you might minimize it. And I talk about in the book the word Ubuntu. And Ubuntu is I am because of you. You are because of me. So I'm just as worthy, deserving, and capable as anyone else on the planet to accomplish whatever I want to accomplish, whatever my goals are. And the capable thing's so fascinating. I remember doing I think I tell the story in the book. I was doing a presentation at a high school, and a 15-year-old girl was in this business class. And I said, how many of you use affirmations? This is almost 2 years ago now. And she raised her hand, and I said, would you mind sharing? And she says, I wake up at 5 o'clock every morning. There's a 15-year-old. I'm pretty sure at 15, I wasn't waking up at 5 in the morning.
I wasn't, no.
Okay. I remember basketball practice at 6 occasionally. But what happened was she followed by saying, I start every day by telling myself, I am capable. And I said, man, you're onto it, girl. This is going to be special for you. So compassion is such a powerful word. It's one of the highest measured words in the science of axiology, with the University of Tennessee, with Dave Blanchard, with the Augmendino Group. Compassion, empathy, and character are just powerful. So I believe that, we touched a little bit on the character thing, on the compassion thing. I learn a lot about life when you realize how incredible people are in serving, lifting when another is going through a tough time. I really felt the world be compassionate for me when I lost Nathan. I was hearing from people for days and weeks and months, maybe even a year, say, hey, I'm sorry, I never told you. I'm sorry for your loss. There's a lot of beautiful people in the world that have a lot of compassion. And I really appreciate that teaching me And I'm not always the best at how to help somebody through losing a loved one or going through a hard time being diagnosed with X that is really going to be a tough one. But I've learned a lot about it, and I've grown from it.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I do remember that day. I think you and I spoke that day, or maybe it was the next day. And what a huge impact that man had, you know, and on so many people. And I never had the privilege of meeting him, but through you, I feel like I knew him, and through a few other folks that knew him.
Yeah, I think most people felt like they knew him because that's kind of the guy he was. He never changed who he was. He always was getting on a plane to go to somebody's wedding, somebody's baptism, somebody's business meeting, some people that weren't even in his downline or his team to do a meeting for him. And he was just remarkable.
Yeah, and he was a true Renaissance man when it came to business, because not only was he one of your top distributors in you know, one of the largest companies on the planet, but he also was a tremendously successful real estate investor.
Huge. Yeah. Yeah. I was one of his top distributors. He was my sponsor.
Yeah.
And he was a real estate tycoon, hundreds of millions in assets.
And flew his own airplane on top of it.
Yeah.
And just great guy. You know, it's funny, you know, you hear about somebody like that you never met, and you know you missed something.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah, I missed that one. You know what I mean? I should have met that guy. I should have.
Well, you know, I'll share one story because, you know, you met Jim Rohn. You knew Jim Rohn. I met Jim Rohn. I traveled the world with Jim Rohn. But when I was traveling the world with Jim Rohn in 1988, 89, I wasn't thinking, hey, I'm sitting next to one of the all-time greats here. I knew he was great.
Yeah.
But man, you would have, and I have journals with notes with him and pictures that I've taken with him on cruises in Tahiti to, you know, trips to Bermuda. But man, I wish I could get back some of that time and really say, hey, let me go a little deeper with you, with your mentor. Let me go a little deeper with your family, your life. You know, what did you really feel when the Girl Scout knocked on your door? You know, I mean, I would have loved to have been a better student and a better questionologist, if you will.
You know, I think the problem there, because, you know, I don't know if I ever told you this story when I spent a morning with 𝐔 Ziegler.
Fun.
And same thing, though, but I'm like 35. You know, you take this for granted that these guys are going to be here forever, not thinking already that they've got 25, 30 years on you, and people don't live forever. And
right.
You know, same with Jim, same with Zig. And, you know, so yeah, I mean, and you know, but yeah, it's well, you know what? We got to enjoy the moment, because you just never know. That's for sure.
That's for sure.
So Dan, you know, another thing you guys did here that's great, and I love the fact that you guys hit on fitness so much, because fitness is so important for our minds. And it's funny, in interviewing now almost 200 luminaries. I mean, everybody I've interviewed is a luminary to one degree or another, you know, some more than others. But at the end of the day, they've all got a life story, and they've all got the benefit of their life experiences as well as their business successes. And it's really funny how many come back to the importance of fitness, physical fitness, as being such a part of their mental fitness. And I love the fact that you and Ken really, you know, hit this with affirmation 7. I am fit and finisher who endures to the end. And you reference different things there, you know, once again with you know, physical health, right? And physical and mental, you know, they go hand in hand.
You know, it's really awesome that Joel put in the Old Testament for us, I am strong. Paul talks about running the race. There's a lot of metaphors, right? But the reality is you just have to find what works for you. I just got back from the climbing gym. I find that climbing, bouldering in the climbing gym really helps my body. And I learned it by being in Austria and climbing the Dolomites. I was just in so much pain, and my hips hurt, my back hurt, my calves hurt. And I climbed this peak. It was more than 60, 70, 80 yards. This kid was sitting way up on top of this whole peak. So I told my wife, I'm gonna climb up there and talk to this kid. And I come down and I said, I don't know what changed, but something about the climb and the way babies crawl and knees come up and things move and the pressure points. I said, I don't know what happened, but I feel amazing. And so I got home and I thought, I got to get into climbing. So I joined a climbing gym, and I go over for 15 to 30 minutes, 2-3 times a week. and it just changes how I feel. So, but I'm a golfer. I want to stay fit and strong, and I'll do other things, biking and lifting and earthing and yoga and whatever. But everybody's got to find their thing. For my wife, she likes to walk. She just leaves and goes walks for miles, right? She likes to listen to things, and she likes to play pickleball. Everybody finds their thing. And Nathan would always say this: keep moving, keep moving.
Yep. Well, now when you were in the Dolomites, I think I told you this. The Solleder Pass there, that was my great uncle Emil.
Oh my goodness!
Who helped to create the sport of orienteering. Fell off a mountain at 27, and they named that mountain pass after him. Of course, I had never met him; he was dead long before my time. But yeah, if you Google it, you'll see that's my bloodline back to Austria there.
That's crazy.
Time ago, yeah. But I should take your advice, because climbing, of course, in Texas, it's a little hard to climb. I'd have to find a climbing gym, but
you just got to find a gym. You just find a gym.
That sounds like fun, actually. It sounds like be a kid again. So Dan, just to wrap this up here today, okay? Affirmation in action, because I listen, folks. The number one student of this book needs to be each one of you, including the guy doing the interview, which you probably can't see my writing there because of the camera. But
cool.
But so Dan asked the question here. Could you add a word to finish the following sentence? I will be a finisher of this book because it could have lasting, my word, impact on my life. That's what Dan and his partner Ken have put together here, is a book that you will study. You'll probably put it on your shelf when you're done. You'll probably pull it off periodically and say, let me go back to chapter 3, page 72. And I'm just picking that out of the air because there was something on there that I bookmarked because it was that important. Okay. This is a book written in 2025, but it could have been written in 1825, 1625, because the truths that these gentlemen have put together are ageless. So take full advantage of them. And yet they're ageless, but yet they're contemporary. And Dan, in closing there, I'd love your thoughts on that, because you guys are talking biblical, you're talking some ancient, even ancient pre-Jesus passages from the Greeks and the Hebrews and some of the other ancient cultures. But once again, this material just as important here in February, March of 2025 as it was whenever the original words were written.
Yeah. And I think the thing that's nice about you saying that, and thank you so much for being so kind to endorse the book and talk about the book and feel the participation of being a co-creator in the book. And that's really what it is. I had this idea from, I don't know if I shared this last week, but it's a fun story. There's a really, really well-known author named Ryan Holiday, and he's written Discipline to Destiny, Ego is the Enemy. But he wrote a book that's not that popular, that is really the one that changed the idea of the book for me. And that is, it's a book called Perennial. And basically what he's doing in that book is he's asking you and I, what are we doing with our lives right now, like you're doing with your podcast, your books, your businesses, that have value 10 years from now? And so when you think and you filter and you go to that first page and you become my co-creator, when I wrote the book, I wanted to say, is this book have value 10 years from now? This book will always have value, because every time a new reader opens the book, it becomes their book. They're the co-creator. It meets them where they are. It's like, I didn't buy Og Mandino's book in 1968. I didn't hear about Og Mandino's book until 1983, 82. So, it's like I was 14 years after. And you know how many of those books I've sold? Tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of Og Mandino books, because that was my first book. So this may be your first affirmation deep dive. This may be your first co-creation piece that leads you to whatever it is you aspire to. And I just love the idea that you've taken it so seriously. And maybe the best interview I could ever have is somebody that has the book in their hands. They're living it, they're experiencing it, they're feeling it, they're growing from it, and ultimately they're sharing it. And we'll get to that next time.
Great. Well, Dan, as always, my friend, thank you so much. And we've got a couple of more chapters we're going to review. We're not going to do them all, folks, because you need to buy the book. Bottom line.
Yeah.
Buy the book. I don't know. Dan was nice enough to send me mine. What's the book cost, Dan? $25?
Yeah, you can get, I think you can get the Sound or the Audible Sound. You get the Kindle for, you know, $10, $12. You can get the soft cover for $20. And, you know, you can get the coin on our website at affirmim.com if you want to add some stacking, what I call sensory stacking in the book. So yeah, Amazon's fine. We love your reviews too. Please post your review. All authors love reviews.
Yeah. This is a game changer. I'm going to tell you, folks. I read a lot of books. People are kind enough to send me, and you know, only some make the cut here. And this isn't because Dan's my friend, and Dan is my friend. I love Dan. He's one of my dear friends and mentor and everything else. But at the end, and by the way, Dan's a mentor to my son as well. And when you let somebody mentor your kids, you know you trust them. Okay, but more important than that, what Dan's put together here, when Dan is in memory, okay. This is a book that if your kids read it and they get it, like that 15-year-old young lady you referred to earlier, okay, it's going to affect a generation in a positive way.
That's right. Oh my.
And that's why we're here. Yeah. Thanks, Dan.
God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check back weekly for more exciting episodes. And don't miss Ink and Insight every Wednesday, where we celebrate iconic authors and dive into their impactful works.